And then the third thing is find a great role model. Find somebody that, is doing things that you thought were impossible, and they started with nothing, and they did it. So there's a pathway there. Maybe you can learn from that pathway. And then I was going to pay nothing unless I cut, a training program in half and increase the competency. And he started with a pistol shooting training, 45 caliber pistol shooting. I never shot a gun before in my life. But I figured out the process, this is what I'm best at, of what the best people in the world did. They gave me the best shooter in the Army, the best shooter in the armed services, and their coach. Went underground, worked with these guys. They had me shoot a gun, and it has a bit of a kick, and I did so poorly, and they're going, what are you going to do? And you're just a kid. I was, 24 at the time. And I said, well, I know a little bit about how to model what makes people successful in their mind and their emotions. Because pulling that gun, there's a certain amount of mechanics, but there's also a strategy of what you do in your head that allows you to target in and make this so successful. And my job is to uncover what that is, and I did. I'll give you a clue. All of these shooters that are the best in the world, they don't see the target far away. They mentally bring it closer. So when I designed the training program, the coaching program for all new recruits, I designed it so when they first shot the gun, they never shot the gun until they'd gone through the exact same motions, everything I'd learned from the best people. But then I put the target 5 feet away. So they go boom, and they shoot it right in the center the first time. Wow, boom, and they built on this success, whereas I was trying to shoot it from 40 yards away, and I felt like a failure. We build on success, and that's part of our success coaching system.
During Mr. Bugliosi's 8-year career in the Los Angeles District Attorney's Office, Vince was successful in 105 out of 106 felony jury trials that included winning 21 consecutive murder cases for the prosecution. He later wrote Helter Skelter about the Manson murders. It is still the best-selling true crime book in publishing history.
That you sit down with a yellow pad for at least 100 hours and you come up with 6, 7, 8 powerful arguments. And number two, I'd have put in hundreds of hours of preparation. The argument would have been so powerful that the jury would have felt it had no choice but to convict. But the prosecutors here were not forceful at all. They were laid back and they were casual. The prosecution has the burden of proof, and it's difficult to meet that burden if you're not forceful. Here, not only weren't they forcible, but they went to the other extreme. I mean, Chris Darden unbelievably told this jury no one wants to hurt this man. In effect, he's telling this jury that everyone outside that courtroom, black and white, are hoping for a not guilty verdict. Then he takes it even further, and he tells the jury, on this issue of whether he's guilty or not guilty, I'd hate to be in your shoes. Again, he's telling this jury that this is a tough, close case. In effect, he's telling the jury it's almost a reasonable doubt case. The prosecutor has to do just the absolute opposite. He has to convey to the jury that the evidence is so overwhelming that they shouldn't have any trouble at all coming back with a verdict of guilty. I could talk for hours on this, Geraldo.
Vince, give me a break.
I'm sorry because these are good people. These are good people, and I don't want to denigrate them.
I would say yes, because this case has so many monumental problems, so many complexities, that any attorney worth his salt is going to demand a considerable amount of time to review all of the evidence so that he can put on a meaningful defense. You just can't do that between now and March 30th.
Were you surprised by Manson's behavior in court?
No. I think his courtroom demeanor throughout has been disrespectful of courts of law and the administration of justice.
Charles Hollipeter, who was appointed to be...
Before I discuss the evidence and the testimony in this case, I would like to briefly go over the law that you are going to be dealing with during your deliberations. Although the evidence at this trial shows that Charles Manson was the leader of the conspiracy to commit these murders, there is no evidence that he actually personally killed any of the 7 victims in this case. However, the joint responsibility rule of conspiracy makes him guilty of all 7 murders. Now that you have had a little legal background, I would like to discuss with you the evidence and the facts of this case. As a prosecutor, you don't want to overlook this and you don't want to leave it to chance. You want to deliberately choose a metaphor that suits the defendant and aids the jury in seeing him as the bad guy. This is nothing new. Jerry Spence has been saying this for years. He says the case tells a story, and in that story, in telling it to the jury, you want to make it perfectly clear who wears the white hat and who wears the black hat. The victims of the crime wear the white hat and the defendant wears the black hat. Once inside the bunk room, Tex told Manson and the group that when he arrived at the residence where the murders took place, he told the people at the residence, "I am the devil here, to do the devil's work." Tex also told Manson that there was a lot of panic and it was real messy and bodies were laying all over the place, but they were all dead. In other words, Tex was reporting. Tex was giving his report to Charlie. Mission accomplished, sir. But even the mission being accomplished was not enough for Charlie Manson. That wasn't enough. That wasn't enough that his robots had just viciously cut down and slaughtered 5 human beings at the Tate residence. Their blood probably still trickling out of their dead bodies when Tex reported to Manson. That wasn't enough for Charlie. Charlie wanted assurances from all of them that they had no remorse. He was not just satisfied with the murders. He wanted to make sure that all of them had absolutely no remorse for what they had done. Of course, why should they have remorse? All they had done was kill 5 human beings. But human beings are pigs, and pigs don't deserve to live. Of course, they all told Charlie they had no remorse. But even then, Manson was not satisfied because his savages had caused fear and panic in the victims, and it was too messy. Charlie did not quarrel with the fact that 5 people had been brutally slain, but he wanted them to be slain in such a way that they didn't panic. I mean, he's a considerate guy. This is the way the beautiful Sharon Tate looked in life, ladies and gentlemen. And this is the ghastly, horrifying way she looked after Susan Atkins and Tex Watson and Patricia Krenwinkel savagely murdered her. The total number of stab wounds to the 5 victims was 102. Ladies and gentlemen, 102 stab wounds. Barbara Hoyt said she was watching television when Susan Atkins came into the trailer and wanted to watch the news. Susan asked Barbara to turn the channel, and Barbara turned it to channel 2 for the 6 o'clock news. She said Sadie called Tex and Patricia into the trailer, and she is pretty sure that Tex and Katie actually came into the trailer to watch the news. She said the group watched the TV account of the Tate murders. At one point, a couple of the group watching TV laughed. Unbelievable! Unbelievable! Watching the TV account of the Tate murders and they are laughing, ladies and gentlemen. Can you believe it? Stop to think about it for a moment. Yes, 5 people being brutally slain and butchered like animals is a rather amusing event. Barbara also testified that in September of '69, while at Myers Ranch, she heard Sadie tell Ruth Morehouse that Sharon Tate came out and said, "What is going on here?" or something like that. And Sadie said, "Shut up, woman." She said Sadie also told Ruth Morehouse that Sharon Tate was the last to die because she had to see everyone else go first. If ever there was a little sweetheart on the face of this earth, it was Susan Atkins. This statement by Susan Atkins, standing alone, without anything else, is enough to convict her of all 5 counts of murder, ladies and gentlemen. Reading from the transcript, did Susan Atkins say whether she in fact killed Sharon Tate? Yes, she did. What did she say? She said, "I killed her." Did Miss Atkins say anything about blood at that point? Yes, she did. What did she say? She said that she had blood on her hand, and she looked at her hand, and she took her hand, and she put it up to her mouth, and she said, "To taste death and yet give life." Wow, what a trick. Not just a robot, but a bloodthirsty robot. Bloodthirsty robots. Can you believe that? Susan Atkins is tasting Sharon Tate's blood. Unbelievable. Did she say anything about the eyes of the people there at the Tate residence? Yes, she did. She told me that she wanted to take their eyes out and squash them against the wall and cut their fingers off, but that she didn't have enough time. Susan, of course, is just a cloistered nun type, ladies and gentlemen. She is as innocent, of course, as a newborn baby, a little darling. Did you ask Miss Atkins how she felt after these murders? Yes, I did. What did she say, if anything? She said that she was tired, but she felt elated and at peace with herself. It's too bad that Sadie was tired. What right did these victims have to cause Sadie to be tired? Manson probably left them still alive with pillowcases over their heads, and they probably thought he was just some freaked out hippie. And if they did everything he told them to do and did not resist him, no harm would come to them. To fool the LaBiancas, ladies and gentlemen, Manson had to wear the same mask that he is wearing in this court. Just a peace-loving individual. In assuring them everything was going to be all right and not to be afraid, obviously Manson had to talk to Mr. and Mrs. LaBianca. Can you just picture the scene, ladies and gentlemen? Leno and Rosemary with pillowcases over their heads. Manson saying to them, "You two piggies just stay put now, and everything is going to be all right." And then silently snaking out of that residence to go down and get his bloodthirsty robots. Mr. and Mrs. LaBianca had no way of knowing that Charles Manson, in his soft voice, his soft demeanor, was preparing them for their horrible death.